And the power of communication and harboring anger is destructive to our immune system. And you find out that people that aren't willing to communicate but want to argue all the time have these issues. So word power is rooted in the right kind of communication, love and respect. And so you look at that, you call the overall picture of marriage supplied to a specific arena of communication. So again, I say, each man must love his wife as much as he loves himself, and the wife must respect her husband. Joseph Crenny says, in difficult conversations, you can approach it three different ways. Avoid the conversation, handle it poorly, or handle it well. Listen, there are conversations that I would just like to ignore. Being the ostrich, I was looking at various pictures for marriage communication, and it had a field full of men with their heads buried in the sand. Men want to avoid certain conversations with women. Why is that? Leonard picked up the microphone. He wants to say something. Why is that? Why would men ignore having a conversation with their wife? Go ahead.
Because of the ego. They know they may not go the way they want to hear it.
Well, yeah, you kind of answered that with two things. One, the ego, or the other one, it won't go the way they want. Plain words, there's probably going to be an argument there. So ladies, don't answer that question either. Why do men avoid the conversation? The idea is we want to choose our conversations that we have. We choose to avoid it altogether. Or the other idea is we get involved, but it's in a destructive manner. The problem with most people confuse communication is what I communicated with them. What you waited so long, you were ready to blow up. And so, boom, you come out. Well, you know what? I want to. Destructive communication, destructive manner, or using some skills like, hey, Debbie, for further reference, don't put my pajamas in my sock drawer. I can't get the drawer shut, you know. So at the end of that conversation, Debbie just simply goes, okay, you know, I'll put the pajamas over in the other drawer.
That's when I said I need this on record. And you just gave it to me. We all heard.
I'm using that for a minor example, you know. But what do you mean you're recording this? No.
I don't know how, so you say.
There's a power. We have the power to change, but do we want to? We have the power to heal the situation. I'm using that for a very simple explanation and talk, and we're having a conversation. But you can come up with tougher ones, harder ones, end up badly. We have the power to heal the situation, make it right by a conversation, communicating with one another, and it has the power to bring blessing into your marriage. Why we communicate. One Christian marriage counselor said there are 6 reasons for marriage communications. One of them is basic information. There are the day-to-day ways that a husband and a wife convey details to each other. I mean, we're just simply talking. Dinner is ready. Debbie yells out at me all the time, "Hey, it's ready. Come and get it." Whatever. Talk about other people, things that we're having. I heard Debbie this morning talking about Isaac's mom and dad, and Bernice is all freaked out and all upset. She got a phone call that their daughter had been kidnapped and they demanded a ransom, and she's all frantic, and she's trying to get the money together and do this so she can go down and send this money to the kidnappers. Carl walks in the room, goes, "What are you so upset about?" And she goes, "Lindsay got kidnapped and they're demanding this money or they're going to kill her." He goes, "That's their problem." He knew what was going on. They know what's going. People in the know. Well, that's their problem. Well, she could have looked at him and said, "You heartless man, what is going on here?" There could have been a big argument. But hey, that's going on all over the place. AI, they get your voice, just a couple of words. They've got the tone of your voice, and they're making all these things. I answer the phone anymore. I don't answer the phone with just a normal voice, hello. Do things differently, because that way people aren't locking onto your voice and getting something. You get so many spam calls. Debbie just sends them all to voicemail. She don't even answer them. If we don't recognize the number, we don't want to answer them. My phone's listed as a business phone number. My 235 number is listed as a business phone. And so I call Rob and Sheila Kennard. Rob will call, say, "Hey, call me back." I try to call them and their phone goes, "I'm sorry, their number is locked. You can't get a hold of them because you're a business." I can't lock out my phone with something like that. But, what do you do in today's world? The kids burn down the shed. That's a conversation to be had. I remember when I was a kid, I was little. I was probably, Gabriel's age. I don't know, one of them. My job was to feed the animals, and I thought the chickens were cold. So I mounted up a bunch of hay in the corner of the barn and set it on fire to heat the chickens. That was a conversation to be had. And it didn't end well.
Fried chicken.
While these are important types of conversations, it's mostly related to facts, just people talking and facts going back and forth. We need to share the details of life. Debbie and I will sit down, we're sitting there, and whether it be the dining room or the living room. We're just talking back and forth of all these different facts through the day, and those are important. But then you have the talks about partnership, because a husband and a wife are partners. What does being partners mean?
Do things together.
You say what?
Do things together.
It means together. You have bank accounts. Are your bank accounts together?
Amen.
Your life is together. You share responsibilities. The children, finances, and many things of life. Communication about these actions are vital. They're so very important. This includes talking about money or parenting. The biggest, most difficult things of marriage are talking about money. People don't communicate about money. The husband wants to buy something, and the wife goes, "No, I don't think so." Debbie has handled our finances forever. She's good at it.
Amen.
And she'll tell me when I cannot spend money. That's the way it is. I have never seen the balance on a checkbook of ours. I don't know how much money we got in the bank. I don't know any, not enough. I don't know anything about it because she handles the house finances. I pretty much handle the church finances. I know when not to spend money, when the bank account keeps going down. I know not to spend money. Okay? And my wife, she does the report. She does that. She enters the bank stuff into her computer. I enter the bank stuff into another computer. One is on Excel, one is on the QuickBooks. And at the end of the month, we make sure that they match. We don't have a problem. And if Debbie's a couple $1,000s off, she comes to me and says, "I don't know what's going on here." It's usually a mess up somewhere. But we communicate our finances. If I'm going to do something crazy, she tells me whether I can or not. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean it in a good way. I tease her all the time. I'm going to go down and buy a new car, and or a new truck, and with all the new amenities of life. I just want a car that drives itself, so I can sleep on the way, and and it will stop when it needs to, but stop when you're backing up. That way you don't back into anything, But she goes, "No, I don't think so. Or if you do, you're going to go get a job. You're going to pay for it." But we talk. I joke with her. We talk, but we communicate together about things. Conflict resolution. Does anybody have any questions about the partnership thing? Are you partners together? Yeah, okay. Just checking. Conflict resolution. People have disagreements. It's not a big deal if you fight. as long as you fight fair. Oh, yes. It's not a big deal if you have an argument or a fight. And I'm not talking about fisticuffs, amen. But be kind, listen. The problem is most of the times we get in an argument, we're not listening. We only say what we want to get off our chest. Either one. Doesn't matter. And so the idea is didn't you learn that in another lesson back? Listen. Seek some understanding in the issue. The goal was lesson 4 of your marriage is not to avoid fights. That's a fantasy. You listen to me. I'll call them a liar straight to their face. Any couple that says they never argue. I'll call them a liar to their face because they do.
Amen. That's right.
One pastor and his wife told me they never argue. And I told him, I said, you're lying to me. Because I know you do.
Yeah.
You'll either do it in private or before people. Before your children. But you argue. I loved it when we were out at the ranch at Larry McGee's mom's family, and one of them said that she would grab him by the ear and drag him off into the other room so the kids didn't hear them. They were still arguing. If a tree falls in the woods and nobody is there to listen, does it still fall? Okay, so there you go. The idea of the goal is to listen and heal it or work through the situation that is the problem. Not throw jabs at one another, because it doesn't matter whether it's a physical or verbal fight. You're throwing jabs at one another, give somebody a black eye or a fat lip. The fourth one is connection. And it's huge in a marital relationship, in healthy relationships. It's easy to connect with one another if you want to. You can do it through eye contact, physical affection, through the words you say to one another. They know. Sometimes I'm running around in the house, and sometimes, and Debbie will look at me, she goes, are you upset with me? You mad at me or something? I go, no, why? Just because you look angry. I said, I always look that way. That's what you tell me. I always look mad. You know, I'm not mad. My mind's on other things. I'm busy. I'm doing things. And, you know, this morning she asked me, are you in a big rush? I go, why? She goes, because you're early. I go, no, I got everything done early this morning. So, you know. But, you know, we make eye contact. You know, we can leave it there. As humans, we're designed to seek connection. One study showed that during the average meal, a couple will have 100 points of connection. But that study was done a long time ago because people don't connect anymore. You know why? Because they're too busy on their phone. Go out to eat, you got the phone in front of you. You know, I'll be looking at some things, or Debbie will be looking at some things or whatever, but the phone is set down right there on the table. It's right in front of you, so you can see if the light comes on. You got an email or a text message or something, and you can pick it up and look at it and see what's on it. The point of connection is the other person going, what's that about? Victoria?
Did you say when that study was done?
No, I just said it was obviously done a long time ago. Yeah, but it should be easy. But in bad marriages, even the connection that is there is over a shared meal. And it's difficult. You know, when you're sitting down at dinner, you're forced to look at one another and talk to one another. That's why you should eat at the table, you know. And you have to look at each other, and you have to talk to each other. So there's a personal revelation and another critical, important type of communication because it involves truly sharing with each other. You know, you think about it. Husband's worked all day, the wife has worked all day, they get home, you know, they just want to chill out and relax. Now it's dinner time, sharing your feelings, talking about what has happened and how you feel about it. Your emotions, you know, your emotions a lot of times, you know, it's at the table that a lot of times this stuff comes out. You share your opinion about something. And it's not, well, that's your opinion, so it doesn't count. Hello, John, you forgot to turn your phone on? Or is that Mina?
No, sir. I turned mine on. He's awake.
It's only people I know that have the Marine song on their phone. The type of communication. Let me communicate with you, John. We already had words this morning about you bugging me with problems. No, just kidding. So, in this, what is happening, Nada works, Victoria works, they're sitting down, they're having dinner, they start the conversation. What it is one of them letting the other person into their world. That's if they're listening. He's smiling. That's if they're listening. And one of the healthiest things a couple can do together is process a negative. Did you hear that? The negative feelings together. It's not just about happy juice, joy, Band-Aids. It's not about that. It's working together, processing the negativity. I know the woman's theory is we don't want you to fix the problem. We just want you to listen. But the man is the hunter. He's the aggressor. He's the attack dog. He wants to fix that.
Amen.
How can I help you?
Yeah.
Oh, you can't help me. Just listen. Then stop complaining, will ya? I'm tired of all the negativity. And then the fight is on. It's letting each other in to the other's world. And instead of dwelling on our part alone, it's working through issues and working through things together as a husband and wife. And lastly is the intimate communication. These are exactly what you think. Expressions of love, words of affection, whispers of I love you. You know, the other day, Debbie and I was by the stove, and Debbie said something, I don't know, we were talking back and forth, and just put my arms around her, you know, and squeezed her. And she goes, oh, don't squeeze. There's communication there. And so there are those things. You know, my kids all the time. It's got to be on the phone. I love you. I love you. I love you. It's just something that they say. Because if you died after that conversation, they don't want to feel guilty that they didn't say it. And so I don't really like saying it, because when I say it all the time, I'm on the phone with somebody, and as I hang up, I go, I love you. Larry did that to one of his bosses at Beezer Homes, you know, and love you, man. And his boss is like, what's that all about, you know? But intimate communication between a husband and wife. And I know people may feel differently about that, but that's just me. Because you build yourself into a habit, and pretty soon you're talking to someone else's wife on the phone, and you go, love you, man. Then you're in deep, serious trouble. Amen. So, you know, I'm just passing a thought there. And these are statements that no one else will say to your spouse, or better not be saying to your spouse. And hopefully because you're the one that's saying them. So the words bind our hearts together and build the kind of closeness that keeps a marriage strong. So I want to look at, so what's hindering marriage communication? What does it start to break down, and why? What is in me? That's the question. What is in me? And so a marriage counselor says, one thing I've noticed is that children of divorce tend to avoid conflict as adults, especially within their marriage. They worry it's going to end the relationship. Communication during times of conflict is a way to ensure that it doesn't. In fact, conflict often happens during times of growth. You know, I listened to my parents as I grew up. I knew my parents since I was born. I didn't know my dad's other wife or his other children, or that's another story. But my parents, they fought. Sometimes they fought a lot. They argued between one another. But they always stayed together. They didn't get a divorce. Unreconcilable differences. They'd argue, but they went to bed together at nighttime. And next morning they got up. Most of the times I can remember, it was fine. It didn't just carry on for time after time after time, or day after day, I should say. But, because of that, sometimes we avoid communication altogether, because we don't want this to turn out to something ugly. One study found that social media use was cited as a reason for divorce in 1/3 of all cases surveyed. Think of that. Social media. Everybody was all up in arms and angry when when Facebook and all that came out and said, you need to stay away from that. Why?
You mean our fellowship?
Yeah. Oh, come on. Has it been that long you've forgotten? What?
I don't have Facebook.
Why not?
Don't want nobody to know my business.
You want nobody to know who you are. Oh, you don't want nobody to find you, Mina. I went to the post office the other day and I saw your picture. What was a big thing that they had against Facebook? Debbie, help me out here. You've been saved as long as I have.
Finding old boyfriends and girlfriends.
They were looking up old boyfriends and girlfriends and old people that they knew. Is that what you said? They were hooking up together on Facebook, and pretty soon they were off together. Relationships. They were building relationships. And so that's why we said, and most of the time that people were ending up in divorce said, what happened? They were on social media and they were hooking up with other people on social media. I know people, God rest their souls, whatever, but they found their soulmate on social media. Well, if they found their soulmate, why did they get a divorce from their soulmate to marry another soulmate? You know, and so you're, listen, when you're jumping from the frying pan into the fire, Pastor Mitchell used to always have a saying, if they'll do it to you, they'll do it to another. And so why? Because I'm connecting. You know, catfishing. Everybody knows what catfishing is. Amen. People catfish you. You find out that love may be not what you expected. Some people ended up dead because of it. But they could connect with people. And they're looking for someone to connect with. And that's difficult. And so, you know, Debbie, I gotta say, she's been patient and persistent and with me. But we have to realize that we are who we are. And I am not what she wants me. We were first married. I had told Debbie her mother was very domineering over the man, you know. I told Debbie one day, you want to be like your mother, go home and live like your mother. Or live with your mother. I didn't, you know, marry your mother. I married you. Debbie's 16 years old, you know. And she's homesick and missing mommy and, you know, all of those things. But I probably didn't handle it in the right way I could today, but it was those words. But Debbie talks to me, and we talk to each other, and we work things out. Almost 67 years later, we have a good relationship. At least I think we do, you know. But God's blessed us, helped us, put the glue in our marriage. And I'm going to have to quit here, but, you know, as God heals our marriage and communications. We've been married so long, we finish one another's conversations. We're thinking about the same thing at the same time all the time. So, you know, it doesn't leave much room for arguing about things except what do you want for dinner? And it's like, I don't care. Well, I don't care. I don't even know how to cook it, you know. But any questions or comments right there? Victoria.
Like back to the part where you were talking about, how things, what did you say? About things, about being, disagreements, about, how it has to be fair. So I know like sometimes like well, a lot of times.
The fair fight?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, like we'll have disagreements or whatever, but then like there will be a part like where either I'm not being fair or he starts not being fair. And I noticed that when it starts getting out of control, that if we, either him or I will say like, hey, like that's not fair, or like you're not being fair, like that's not okay for you to say this, and I can't do that. Like it's not okay for you to do that and for me not to say this. Like if we put that in the surface, that brings like light to the problem, and it's like it's like I don't know. It brings it to surface and it stops that. It stops the disagreement getting out of control. It stops the conversation turning into a fight.
The old way, you know, is our generation was taught, just walk away. Just, you know, going, I'm not going to keep this up, you know, because this conversation's gone downhill very rapidly. So, so walk away from it is what, you know, and it's exactly right. Hey, you're not being fair. This isn't right, you know. Don't, you know, don't give my wife any ideas, okay? Anyone else? Anyone else? Got a minute? Jesse's standing up. She's, no, Jesse's sitting down. Okay, we're done.